I've tried to monitor across the various television programs what's happening across the nation. I think we've seen some very responsive protesting and rallying across the nation with very few incidents, and this is not only in the south of Australia but in the Northern Territory. There were peaceful protests, and it's an opportunity for people to gain greater knowledge about how Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people feel, but it's also an opportunity to understand the reasons why we feel this way about the 26th of January.
And just flesh that out for us, Tom. What is your personal view on changing the date, and what does the 26th of January represent to you?
Look, it's really a hearts and minds matter. From the heart, it's really difficult to be able to celebrate Australia Day on the 26th of January when it has different impacts on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, from colonisation and all the intergenerational trauma that's existed, and the dispossession of land, dispossession of culture and language, and so forth. So it's difficult to celebrate what should be a day to recognise who we are as Australians, but not to the extent of foregoing an understanding of the history that went before colonisation. And so I think that's an important recognition. But on a positive side, we're seeing people all across the nation now being very prepared to learn a lot more since the national apology, since reconciliation action plans got off the ground, since there's been various movements around that people are really keen to understand and to recognise that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were here 60,000+ years pre-colonisation, with the longest continuing surviving culture in the world. And we want to be recognised, and we are part of Australia. We're part of the Australian fabric. We're part of the Australian history. We can't overturn what went on in the past, but it's important that we do make sure that our future is one that is positive, and that is one where we as a nation can celebrate a day that we all can recognise. And that's why many of us are really promoting that the 26th of January could be a day to recognise volunteers, a day to recognise our first-line workers, and celebrate who we are as Australia, and make the citizenship ceremonies and other events that take place on a different date. And I think that way we can, as a nation, move forward, because the reality is, if and when we get to become a republic, we will change, unless by some weird coincidence that it happens on the 26th of January, Australia Day will have another date.
And that would be your preference? I see that is an idea that's being pushed in quite a few quarters. The former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull throwing his backing behind that a day in the future when we become a republic could be the new Australia Day date. Is that something you think could unify the country?
I believe it would unify, and I think that celebrating, today, the 26th of January, is the day that we as a nation can celebrate, who we are now, but call it another day. Celebrating, first-line workers, volunteers, us as a society, and that Australia Day becomes a different date. And you look, I think it was last night's events, the Australian of the Year events, and all the finalists, the winners, and we saw that Gracie Tam got up and talked about. Now is the time to have that conversation and to be led by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. But it is so encouraging to see so many non-Indigenous Australians walking with us on this journey. And the work that we do at Reconciliation Australia also identifies very clearly that there is a strong level of support by Australians generally to recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and our history, our prehistory, and our cultures and languages, and where we're going to in the future. So I think it's each day it's getting better, but what we need is some political will now to have that conversation and to consider what possibilities for the future are.
And when you look at those opportunities, I know that your committee has recommended this suite of interim recommendations about the proposal for a voice to Parliament and to government and how that could work. What's your message to those critics of this concept, though, those who are still worried that this voice somehow could represent a third chamber of Parliament, that it won't be workable in a realistic fashion?
Well, I think that notion of a third chamber of Parliament is a historic blip that a few pollies got keen on. But, since then, we've had a recognition by existing politicians and others that it won't be a third chamber of Parliament. That's just a bit of humbug that's out there. But really, it's an opportunity for major policy and legislation to reflect what Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people agree with many other people should be the way forward. If we want to see success, we have to engage with the people most affected in policies, and that's irrespective of which nationality or which group that is being represented. It's no different to after a major disaster, a bushfire and so forth. The government doesn't go and impose the way that the townships are rebuilt. They engage with the people most affected, and they, in a partnership, will design the future. And that's all we ask as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, that we need to be, part of the solution. We want to be part of the solution. We are over being blamed for the non-successes when those non-successes are often imposed on us rather than us being part of that, development of policies or programs. So, look, we've had a very positive response to the interim report, and it may not meet the needs of everybody who may have a different view, but if we recognise that the project that Marcia Langton and I are leading is about a response to the Joint Select Committee of Parliament to establish through a co-design process a number of models for government to consider for a voice to Parliament. And government, post receiving the final report, will consider whether it becomes a legislative response or whether it goes to a referendum. But that'll be a choice for the government to make. And it's really important that others who have a different view, particularly about constitutional enshrinement, continue their advocacy with government and the politicians to make sure that they become really informed. So when they make a decision, it is an informed decision rather than something that's politically motivated or something that may be just done without any evidence or any real understanding of how people across Australia feel, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians.
Professor Tom Calma, always appreciate you joining us on Sky News with your insights. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ash.